Hello and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Device, where we explore the life-defining moments that shaped careers within the medical device industry. We are particularly interested in understanding how personal experiences, challenges, or pivotal events influence professional journeys. As we progress through the conversation, we will land on the question, what is the one defining moment or experience in your life that changed everything and set you on the path that you're on today? Today's guest is a founder and inventor of medical devices dedicated to improving the quality of life for people with long-term conditions. A design engineer by training, she is passionate about developing patient-centered solutions that combine technology, empathy, and accessibility. She is the founder of Lions and previously Charco Neurotech, where she led the development of a wearable neuromodulation device that has already helped thousands of people with Parkinson's regain mobility and independence. Her work is now focused on the automatic nervous system, developing patient-centered technology to support people experiencing anxiety, trauma, stress, and sleep challenges. But we want to know about how she got here, the early life influences, role models that guided her, and the pivotal moments that shaped the person beyond the job title. The About section on her LinkedIn profile simply says principles, which I'm sure we'll dig into the meaning of that further in the conversation. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Lucy Jung to the podcast. Welcome, Lucy.
Welcome.
No, thank you very much for having me. Hello.
Hello. Well, with all good stories, we're going to start at the very beginning. So if you wouldn't mind giving us a bit of an insight into your earlier years and what shaped you growing up.
Yeah, no, this is very exciting. So I had a good chance to think about, so where did it all begin? I think I'm from South Korea, so I was born in South Korea. But very early on, before I actually learned Korean very well, I had to move to China because my father was transferred to China to build a manufacturer there. He was working in a big corporate. At that time, I was about 6, 7, so I was just before getting into my primary school. I ended up in an international school where I was exposed to suddenly completely different environment with different people, learning English and meeting with lots of people. We were not allowed to actually speak our own language at school, so you can imagine that there was a bit of a chaos, but also we learned how to communicate somehow. So I actually lived there for about 4 or 5 years. So very early on, I was exposed to diversity when it comes to culture or language or whatever it is. So I think that really actually shaped my whole life. The other thing is because we moved from Korea to China at that time, we spent a lot of time with the environment that we were in, which meant we were living surrounded by the same company colleagues of my father. So it was Samsung. So in the whole apartment, everyone was from Samsung. But what was quite exciting is that all the adults would teach us quite a lot. We spent a lot of time together, and within the apartment, there were people from engineering department, there were people from business environment, there were people from a HR, and we would learn a lot because there were lots of family dinners, there were lots of engagement. I think actually one of the key things, as you mentioned, that my background is design engineering, but if people ask me, where did you learn the business? We learned it as we grew up. We were, the principle that I talk about how we should always focus on the value of what are we doing to support people. What kind of value are we providing? Was very much of a childhood kind of principles that grew with us because of the surroundings that we were. Now, from 4 to 5 years spending in China and suddenly coming back to Korea, that was another huge kind of jump. When I first came, we used to have like 12 students in our class with 4 teachers. But when we came back to Korea, suddenly there were 38 students in the class with 1 teacher. There were very, very different principles. There were lots of kind of adjustments that we had to go through. That gave me another kind of opportunity, per se, to adjust to new culture, new way of like studying. The culture, I think it was definitely a big thing that I had to readjust back to Korea. I grew up as a teenager in Korea, and I famously went through the university preparation in Far East Asia. Meant that I went to school around 7 o'clock. I would finish school and go to academia, where we would stay till 2 o'clock in the morning to constantly work. But within that, I also was very, very creative. So I would always kind of draw on my notepad all the time. I had my own way of structured kind of studying, where I was very self-disciplined. And I think this is actually one of the key things that my early childhood really shaped me, where my parents were very focused on teaching principles rather than saying, okay, I'm going to sit down with you and teach you math. So they will be teaching me about what it means to, why is hard work important? Why is it so important for you to realize what's important to you? What do you really enjoy? One of the stories that I love is when our teacher actually called my parents saying that, oh, she's not studying, she's drawing on her notepad. My parents actually said, well, we don't really see the problem in that if she really enjoys that, as far as she's not interrupting the rest of the class. Do you think we should encourage that? And I think that kind of encouragement throughout my upbringing from my parents, of them trying to not guide me, but actually supporting me to think about what I really enjoy and what's really important to me, and encouraging to focus on that dream and vision that I had, really shaped my career and my life.
So you've obviously been given the space and the time to just kind of, like, your parents just going along with what you're doing and encouraging what it is that you're doing at the time. But what were the kind of aspirations as a child? Like, did you see yourself in the industry that you're in now? Like, what?
Yeah, so when we had to write down who do you want to become, I actually wrote down president, and somehow, who knows, I wrote down that I wanted to become a president, and I have no idea actually why I wrote that.
Which country?
At that time I was in South Korea, but I don't think I actually really minded. So who knows?
Okay.
We're still early in life. I have to say, I never thought about becoming an entrepreneur. It actually continued until my university life, until I became a CEO and a founder of a company. But what I always wanted to do is good deed for the society. Our team members always kind of say, like, Lucy, where is this kind of like a good deed coming from all the time? Why do you always talk about this societal responsibility and obligation? I actually do have a quite strong principles around that, of that as an individual, I want to contribute to the society. So that's one of the key vision that I have. I think how did I kind of get into the innovation, design, engineering? It was very much of a journey. So I mentioned that I love the doodling before drawing. So I am I'm artist. So initially I was getting trained to go to an art school. But when I went to university, the Korea university that I wanted to go for had an industry design, which was very much looking into ergonomics and human behavior to come up with a solution for people, beautifully combined together with an art. So there was a lot of sketchings, there was a lot of aesthetic element of it, ergonomics combined together with product design. I absolutely loved it. Learning about going back to this societal good. I wanted to care for people. So if there was a product that wasn't designed appropriately, combining my kind of art background, I was mostly working on redesigning the product. Whether it's functionality, so it's not necessarily just aesthetic, whether it's functionality, whether it's a shape or it's a service. So I actually see a design as a whole rather than just an aesthetic design. It is the system, it is the platform, it is the whole total, the value proposition that we have. So when I decided, I have to say it was very much of a journey. So I wanted to work in a medtech because I realized that there is a lot of things that we can do for people with long-term conditions. I was lucky enough to do an internship in the UK. So from Korea, I don't know where that courage came from, but I got an opportunity to do an internship in the UK. And it was my first time in like decades to come out from Korea, so I had to relearn English. I came to UK and worked in a medical device design consultancy. And there, the art side and problem solving and caring for people, and then combining that with medtech was just a beautiful kind of missing piece that I felt like I needed. So I decided to go into medtech, and then I felt I needed to learn more. Therefore, I applied for Innovation Design Engineering course at Imperial College London and Royal College of Art, which is once again combining science and art together. And that's where the journey started. I kind of looked into multiple sclerosis, paralysis, Parkinson's, and Parkinson's is where my heart kind of lied for a long, long time. So yeah.
So you mentioned your parents and the influence they had on you in terms of just letting you do what you were doing. Were there any other key influences at an early stage that guided you on this path to becoming fascinated with Parkinson's and wanting to help people? Like who was in and around you at that point?
I would say actually that goes into my personal story more than my kind of family, because my family are mostly in consumer products. So as mentioned, my father, mother, and my brother all worked at Samsung. My brother's still working at Samsung. I think I was more exposed to the consumer goods for sure because of that. So I learned about why there is a Galaxy, I don't know, 20, Galaxy 21. Why do we have different product line depending on which country it is? Why is the pricing different? Why is the design diversified? So I learned a lot of kind of design principles and value proposition and company building around consumer goods. I think the direction into the long-term condition and supporting people with medical, it was very much of PDD actually, once again, the consultancy that I worked together with. And this, the first kind of seniors I worked together with, every time they talked about, okay, what is the best thing for a patient, it just made me very, very motivated. And I think it was that early on. But equally, from innovation, design, engineering, the professors there, the lecturers there, everyone was so focused on generating good for people, and that really inspired me. So I can't particularly say one path. It was very much of a combination of environment that I was exposed to.
I think we've seen from the role that we've played in this industry for the last 12 plus years that you get some amazing academic founders that never saw themselves as an entrepreneur or a CEO, but they've just had a passion for the subject like you have. And then in their final year, they do some research and they maybe have a device or a product that then has some legs as a business. And then you find yourself as the CEO. So it was never the intentional step to be the CEO, but you've just created a business and your focus is on the product. And in this industry, patient safety, patient care, good for good is the ethos. But more and more, as software and tech has entered into the medical healthcare space, you're seeing people get into the industry for the wrong reasons, and they try and cut corners. They misunderstand regulation. They don't put enough importance on patient safety. And you can see the values of the businesses and then the feedback you get from people that work there that want to do good for good. So the landscape is definitely changing, but I think some of the best founders are those that never actually intended to do the job. So it brings us to the question around your pivotal moment or a defining moment in your life or career. So when I mention that, what comes to mind for you?
Duncan, I actually love what you mentioned there as well, because yes, I never kind of saw myself becoming an entrepreneur because I think I also had a kind of thinking that if you do want to become a CEO of a company, your kind of interest needs to heavily rely on, cutting corners if needed to commercialization. And I think I actually have no idea why I started having that, because early on my journey of the way that I learned from my business advisors as environment, they always focused on the value. I think it was actually more social media where they talk about, oh, business people are evil. And I think as a teenager, as a rebel, a little bit, I started thinking, oh, it's business people and evil. But I really go back to what I was taught growing up from what my parents actually taught me about. You can never become a good business without thinking about the value first. It always needs to be a value, and everything will follow. Never chase money. That's the lesson that my parents gave me from very early on, and it all came back. And I'll share how I went from researcher and very keen to go into lecturing and then becoming a professor at university to actually diverting my journey into founder. The Parkinson's project that I worked on in 2014 was very successful. It got a lot of media interest. We've never had that kind of media interest as a project and as a student, so we got very nervous. We got a lot of emails from people with Parkinson's asking, where can we buy this device? And I still remember to date where we sent respond to them saying, we're very sorry, it's a research project, so it's not available. Even at that moment, I never thought about actually leaving university to become a founder. But something happened. So I started actually not walking very well. I was kind of walking on one side all the time, and our team, and at the time, like as a young 20s, we were making joke about, come on, Lucy, walk properly. I was a designer, but I couldn't see properly, so I was always kind of having trouble with this visions as well, and it was very, very sudden. So initially we were making a joke, but very quickly we realized that this is actually quite serious. As early 20s do, I kind of ignored it, but it was bothering me enough, which meant actually it was bothering my work that I absolutely love. And I had to go for a checkup. There was initially there was a bit of a delay, but once they did a full blood count, they actually really quickly diagnosed me with a brain tumor. It was a benign brain tumor, but it was acute enough and the symptoms were severe that it was affecting my day-to-day. So from early 20s, who were so excited about my future and exciting projects, having lots of fun with my friends, within 2 months I was completely bedbound and I was preparing for brain surgery. And I went through quite a complicated procedures because the medications that I was able to take to control the growth of the tumor, I was all intolerant to. But whilst we were testing that, the side effects actually made my condition much worse. So there was a lot of uncertainties. It was actually very scary moment, I have to say, and I really mean it when I say when you could see from the clinicians' eyes that they actually don't know what else to do. It is actually very scary.
Yeah.
And I think that brain surgery also became quite complicated because the tumor positioning wasn't very good. So they were able to take part of it out, but I still live with a part of it. But I always say that I'm actually really grateful because that moment changed my life. It really did. How did it change? After the surgery, I wasn't recovering. I was doing really poorly. And I remember it's 17th floor of Samsung Hospital. And yes, there is a Samsung Hospital in Korea. It was very bizarre that I was looking out of the window thinking, will I ever get out there again? And if I ever do, I will do something about the research that we did because there was a potential that we could help people with Parkinson's, but we said, well, it was a study, so we can't actually do something about it. I realized the impact of research actually turning into real life impact for people. And when you are in that position, of having a long term and potentially not being able to get out of the hospital again, it does, the clinical significant difference or the research significance, it suddenly becomes meaningless. It's that 1%. I just want 1 minute of less pain. Every single thing becomes so, so important. I made a promise, and surprisingly, that night at 2 o'clock in the morning, the clinicians found out that I was intolerant to another medication, and that's why I wasn't recovering, not necessarily because of the surgery. And from there, I recovered, and I kind of took it as a sign to dedicate myself into bringing research, being very, very rigorous into research, and yourselves, as you mentioned, regulation. I think it's so, so important because it's about patient safety, it's about efficacy. So for me, all of those principles really align with myself, really focusing on doing strong research and actually bringing it into people so they can actually benefit. So yeah, that's how my life shaped.
It's an amazing story, and has clearly defined you and the direction you've gone since then. Just when you were sharing, we have a friend that went through a similar experience a couple of years ago with a benign brain tumour that then when they did the biopsy, it was actually brain cancer. And he went through the process of radiotherapy and is now in remission and is healthy and is back at work. But we have seen firsthand with a friend what that does to someone and how you have to rebuild yourself after. And I guess the view it gives you on life around
Absolutely.
values and what's important. And for you in particular, in your story, it's almost that becoming the patient confirmed your direction in this good for good and wanting to go back to the research because you saw the value in it, and actually how many lives you've probably helped since then because of your own experience as a patient.
Absolutely.
It's a very, very clear why to have. But if you put yourself back in that hospital room, either when you first found out or when you were going through the process, what were the actual emotions that you were feeling at that time?
I actually felt quite grateful because I think it's a life lesson that you will never learn otherwise. To be grateful that at this moment I'm still breathing, and I genuinely mean it. Every morning I wake up, and no matter what kind of challenges that there are, whether we raised a quite significant fund from previous company, and you always kind of feel like, okay, if the fundraise doesn't go well, like my life is going to end, or like if this production line have a fault, things are going to be very difficult. It builds a very, very strong resilience of, okay, I can get up in the morning, I can actually stand up, I'm going to solve this problem. And that makes you fundamentally very grounded. So I do still kind of live with going in and out the hospital, and it always brings me back into what it means to be patient. I was actually at A&E last week for myself, so I was quite unwell, but I also lived with it for multiple years. So, and also because I study around my condition quite a lot, I try to manage it very well. But whilst I was there, I was looking at other people and how they're feeling, the processes that they're going through, what may be a big challenge for them. So the reason why I founded the first company and the second company and will continue the journey into patient care is because there are so many problems. There are so many opportunities that we can support people's day-to-day life better. And yes, absolutely, I would love to come up with, for example, prevention of a conditions or a cure. But what I am focusing on is actually that day-to-day, any kind of support that can really make their life happier. So my first company, the motto was bringing smiles back for people with Parkinson's. This company, just bringing that day-to-day happiness, just a little bit. And that impact can be very, very significant to individuals. So that weirdly, initially I was very scared when I was going into that moment that I first got diagnosed, and there were a lot of uncertainty of where my kind of situation may be heading to. I was scared. But later on after the surgery, and that moment I was standing up in front of the 17th floor, the window, I actually felt very grounded of thinking, okay, this is where I really want to head to. I'm grateful that I learned this lesson of the meaning of life. And actually one of the biggest happiness that I get from is if we can just make other people's day a bit better. It's very, very meaningful and fulfilling life.
And it's obviously a very scary moment that you went through, and a lot of people when they go through, maybe not what you have, but pivotal moments in their life, there's a support system of people around them to help get them through. Did you have that, and who was that support system for you?
Yes, I was so lucky. At the same time, I did actually needed a bit moment. I actually met with one of the friends back at ID, the Innovation Design Engineering course, because I had to suddenly stop my studies in between. And he never realized why I suddenly disappeared, because I actually didn't tell many people, because it was difficult for me to digest actually that I suddenly had this tumor and have to go to surgery. And so on the hindsight, I was actually not communicating to wider people, but obviously my parents, my family was very, very supportive. Although I do have to mention that I was actually more concerned about them, and I'll explain why. Because when I was in pain, I understand my pain. But for people who are not directly going through that pain, they also go through a lot of pain. I think that's why I'm also very passionate about carers' support. I remember my father and my mom and my brother, they're usually very, very resilient people and very charismatic and strong people. But I've never seen their eyes apart from that moment where they felt, okay, this is a life challenge, that they don't know what's going to happen to their sister or a daughter. And they actually, I could see their weakness just one moment in my whole life, because they're such a strong people. And then is when I realized, okay, I'm going through a lot, but they're also going through a lot because they felt really helpless. They didn't know what to do. And I think it's also very important that we understand that, yes, patients go through a lot of things, but also people around you do go through a lot. So there should be a support system for all.
Mm. And you obviously mentioned feeling scared and then quite quickly feeling grateful and grounded when you're up on the 17th floor. But in that period, what strategies were you using to kind of cope or get to the point of feeling grateful? Like, what actually did you do, or what were you thinking?
I try to stay quite delightful, if I'm honest with you. So I think it is a very much of what kind of growing up, how I learned about what my parents and my brother always kind of taught me about. If you can't avoid it, enjoy it. And it is very much of a Korean kind of mentality of, okay, if you have to finish this within the deadline, might as well enjoy it. You are not going to avoid it. So I actually really kept that mentality. And I remember the moment, and I'm still so grateful. So after the surgery, I lost all the kind of sensory. So I couldn't smell, I could not taste. I had a quite bad status where I could not, my body was not keeping the fluid, so I was keep on getting hydrated through IV and everything. And I remember one of the best moments is that I had a limited kind of visitor access, but my brother and sister-in-law came to visit me. And it may be controversial, but they brought me two food that really doesn't go together, which is Korean food, which is one is spicy rice cake and an ice cream. And they mixed it together, bear with me. And then they say, oh, wow, Lucy, you can't taste, so might as well, maybe you can eat this. And But that made me smile and that made me laugh. And at that time, we really didn't know if I'm going to get out of the hospital or not. But that laugh that I had was actually one of the best one, because if we can't change the current state, we are doing our best. Like, we were absolutely doing the best. The clinicians and everyone was doing their best to find out what's wrong. But in between, that kind of small laughters and small joke really kind of kept me going. And we still live by that. So no matter how difficult the situation is, we try to find a moment of like enjoyment and laugh, whether it's a very small thing or a big thing. And that kept me going. I do remember, because of part of my condition, I break my bones quite often. And I was at A&E, broke a bone, and the A&E doctor was saying, there's no way that you broke a bone and you're laughing. But indeed, I did actually break the bone. And I think it's that of trying to stay positive, trying to be grateful for what we still have. I was grateful that I was at A&E actually, because I was elsewhere and I was scared, will I be able to get to A&E to get taken care of? So I think in any scenarios, and this is the learning from my parents, about any scenarios, you can learn, you can be grateful. So focus on those and it will keep you going.
I think of the 30 odd episodes that we've recorded, there's certain quotes or statements that are made, and this will be one of them for sure. If you can't avoid it, enjoy it.
Yes.
I was just about to say the same thing. It's such a shame we've just done a review of episodes to date, but this one would definitely get brought up in the next one.
Yeah. And what advice would you give to someone that's going through a turning point? You know, yours is a significant one and the outlook looked very uncertain. So what would you say to someone that's going through something similar?
So actually, Imperial, one thing that I'm so grateful is that I was able to recover. I went back to university and I founded the first company based on the research that we started. And now we took off, and within that gap, I was able to go back to Imperial and actually started teaching. And it was one of the dreams that I wanted to do whilst forming Lions. And one of the modules is called Reflection. And I love this module, I have to say. I think this, we get so busy, like day to day, filled with calendars. We're always running around. There's always emails coming in, messages coming in. So lots of times we lose ourselves because of the speed of the things that are happening around us. I think it's actually very, very important that we listen to ourselves and reflect on where are we going? Do I really like what I'm doing? Do I get up in the morning thinking that, wow, I cannot wait to wake up because I just love getting back to what I'm doing? So I loved one of the things that our team member said is that, Alexis, are you working this weekend? And he said, no, I'm not working. But I knew that he was working on a project, but he was just saying that he enjoyed it that much that it doesn't feel like working. And I think that's so, so important for everyone to find something that they truly, truly believe in and love, and your life will be very fulfilled. Whoever is going through the most challenging times of your life, it's very hard, I have to say. We cannot say that everything will be good, so don't worry. We cannot say that. It's hard, I have to say. But one thing that at the most difficult times that kind of holds me up is that the life is about to teach me one of the biggest lessons that will shape my life moving forward. Authentic leadership course that I was lucky enough to go to was all about what kind of challenges did we go through in life and what decisions did we make, why did we make that decision, and if we actually reflect on those, we can actually understand what is actually most important thing for ourselves, not other people, but really for ourselves. So that's kind of my small piece of kind of comment I want to make, is that please do listen to yourself. Please make sure that you live your life. And that's, I think, the principles of my parents are learning of. Please do think about what you really care about.
Yeah, I think the section of the podcast here where we ask about lessons or advice for people going through their own moments. For so many, these pivotal moments aren't necessarily positive ones, but they're experiences that shape you, they build your resilience. But a lot of the feelings that you could link to these moments are anxiety, it is potentially trauma, it's stress, it's the sleepless nights. And these are all things
Absolutely.
that Lions, the business that you're currently working on, is there to support. So I'm interested to hear a bit more about this business and actually how does the product work? Is it a service? Is it an app?
So, no, thank you so much for bringing up Lions. I think Lions is actually really motivated from my personal experience as well. So we talked a little bit about my medical history, but as I kind of briefly mentioned, it is still ongoing. One of the things that I developed was PTSD-like symptoms when I was exposed to certain stimuli, mostly around sound, and that is similar to kind of hospital beeping sounds. I developed a hyperventilation, and lots of times it led to panic attacks. And as my kind of history tells, I wasn't able to take any medications because the doctors were quite reluctant to prescribe me with medication, considering amount of intolerance that I had, and lots of times it actually affected my condition further. So we had to kind of find a way to support myself. We, as a team, we've got lots of biomedical scientists, we've got neuroscientists, we've got a great clinical advisors as well. We started looking into why is panic attack even happening? Why do people go through a lot of challenges? Where is anxiety coming? Where is the stress generated? One of the really interesting things that we started looking into is actually physiological and psychological anxiety. So what stresses, what kind of input do we get, and how does our brain act, and how does our body then act, and then how is that kind of a negative loop can be generated and really impact individuals. I'm sure you've heard about fight or flight mode, where we are exposed to certain stimuli. It can be an information, it can be a sound, it can be a visual, but suddenly our body gets very, very stressed. And when that happens, our heart is racing, like our palm gets sweaty. Sometimes some people get tremor, and sometimes it can lead to panic attack. We wanted to solve this. And why did we wanted to focus this? Well, first of all, it's a personal experience that was really challenging for us to resolve. But another thing was that when we were working with lots of different neurological long-term conditions, whether it was Parkinson's, MS, or paralysis, anxiety and stress of the body really worsens symptoms across any kind of conditions that people have. Even if you don't have a condition and you've got a stress and anxiety that really impacts your day-to-day life, you can get sleep disorder. Sleep disorder can lead to further neurological conditions. So we felt like this is a fundamental support that we can give to people to create a long-term impact. Now, combining that with one of the learnings that I had, I tend to kind of learn lots of things whilst I'm living my life and navigating my life. When I was becoming a parent, when I was pregnant, I did lots of study around how to become a good parent as academic. And one of the things that I read about when a child is going through a tantrum, that's not a time for you to try to explain things. It's time to give them a hug. And I thought that was really interesting. And then I started reading into why is hug helpful for children, and I started looking into the brain development and how our frontal cortex and our amygdala kind of react, and how our body and our mind kind of is very much linked. So it's very important to understand that. The science behind the hug, although we are doing many, many more studies at the moment, there was this really interesting phenomenon called the cardiac physiological synchrony, where our heart rate starts coupling. So the studies actually show that when you're hugging, or if you're even using the same bed or in the same environment, your heart rate tend to synchronize. And there is another kind of science that we're looking into related with the co-regulation. So we wanted to give hug to everyone, of course, but the reality is that that's not possible. When we are just about to go to pitch or a very important interview, they can't sit with me and give me a hug all the time. So we looked into the accessibility, because for mental health care, accessibility is very, very important. At that moment that they are exposed to stressor, we want to support them. So we created a hardware that is giving a visual, audio, and tactile stimuli that is mimicking a calm heartbeat. And what we were able to see so far is the synchronization of the calm heartbeat of the device and individuals feeling physically more calm, therefore it makes them feel better. So at the moment we beta launched the device as a health and wellness device. We are doing a lot of study in the background, so we are preparing for a 100 people randomized study with our principal investigators to learn more. But where we want to get to is do more studies around how this can help with a healthy adults, but moving forward, learning more about ADHD, autism, trauma, PTSD, other neurological conditions such as dementia. How can it support people widely? So we're at a very early stage of our understanding, but the beta launch that we had with about 20 people, it's been really exciting to see how it supports them during the stressful times, and also how it's helping with their sleeping. The beautiful part of it is how people start. We talked about patient and carer. The device has been received by people who are actually in both category of carer and some people who does have stress and anxiety in their day-to-day life. And they're actually sharing the device between themselves of, oh wow, like try this. When you're going to difficulties, use this. And we're learning a lot at the moment. The MVP is launched. We're learning from people. We're preparing for wider studies. So that's our vision, to support our brain health day to day, so that we can support our brain and our mind better.
So interesting. I was just thinking of all the situations that I'm in where that could be useful. I think it maybe be a bit of a stretch thinking in the final half of a marathon and my heart rate is through the roof and I've got something that's trying to regulate it for me. It probably wouldn't work there.
We are studying, so this is actually the key thing. So the device can be adjusted, because no one's heart is the same. So we're looking into heart rate variability, breathing patterns, the breathing depth, because interesting enough, we actually had a runner who was saying that when he listens to music, he can run much better with that beat. So
yeah,
we're actually learning that rhythm of what can actually help people get more energized, because one of the users apparently said, it does help me calm, but actually it's really also helpful for me to focus when I feel fatigued. So we are actually learning a lot from central nervous system. So Duncan, I will keep you updated to see if we can help.
if you need another person in the randomized trial, I'm happy to help.
Amazing. That will be actually incredible for the listeners. We are going to launch the study soon. So if you are interested in this, please do keep your eyes on.
Nice. So, I mean, you've explained so much about your journey and what drives you, and what's got you to where we are today. But if we start to look at the future, and you're at such an early stage with Lions, but what does the future hold for you personally and professionally?
I always say that one big part is I want to innovate more in this brain health and people's health and people getting taken care of. I think there's a lot that technology and system and everything can do in terms of well-being, whether it's physical or psychological. So that's what we're going to always focus on. We will be learning more about central nervous system, autonomic nervous system. Can we support with pain? Can we support with the focus or performance and calming? So that's the key decade of studies that we'll probably carry on. Personally, one of the things, also going back to the lessons that I got from my parents, is actually giving back. And that's why I'm actually really passionate about education. I think the 20s and the teenagers and the young people, there is a lot of kind of change that's going on in the world. I think when iPhone first came out when I was young, it felt like the world was completely changing. But this time, when the AI is really shifting our day-to-day, the companies are changing structures, the strategies, and we ourselves, from running first companies to current companies, completely different because of the way that we are implementing AI into our system. I think it is when there's such a significant change, we all tend to get a little bit shooken up. Like it is a time where we feel like, okay, where is the world going? The education is actually something that I'm really passionate about. So where possible, I try to spend my time mentoring and educating, because my father is also now a professor in entrepreneurship, as well as running a VC to support the startups, is to do that greater good to support future leaders of the world.
Yeah, and I'm sure passing on your own lessons as a parent now around principles and I've got a baby due in May. So yes, some lessons I'll take from there as well. Just let them do what they want, by the sounds of it.
Yeah. I think by letting them. So I actually did ask my father about why does he not tell me what to do? Because he never tells me what to do. He always asks me, why do you want to do that? Have you thought about this? Without trying to guiding me to certain answer that he want me to get to. And he said, the reason why I don't tell you what to do is because if I tell you what to do, you're just going to become best at his level. So the far that you can get to is how far I got to. But I believe that you can thrive much further. So why would I tell you what to do? You should do what you think is the right thing to do. I think that really gave us myself and my brother a strength of self-directing, self-discipline. So yeah, I have to say it is a kind of like, it can go either way maybe, Duncan, but I do same for my children.
I was going to say, the question, why do you want to do that? Does that work on a 3-year-old? Because I can just imagine the responses I'm going to get if I ask him that.
I think we have to look into the brain development part as well, because they are yet to understand whether this is hot or not. So maybe as far as we keep the safety.
So final question from me. I've really enjoyed this conversation. It's been so good. But if we were to think about the industry that we all work in and support, what excites you most about the future of medtech?
Ooh, I'm so excited about a lot of focus in neurotechnology at the moment, as you can imagine. When we first started in 2014, I don't think there were much interest in comparison current times. I think there is a lot of excitement, and I think also I think it's quite exciting that now there are more discussions around neurotech and what kind of regulations there should be in place, because I think that's also very important. As you mentioned, I think when there's more interest in the industry, there's a positive side of it, but also there's a risk of people just getting in. I'm sure yourselves are aware of things kind of changing regards with, okay, what is considered as wellness device as to what is now, okay, that is medtech. So I think it's great that there's more discussion, there's more interest, and there's more awareness around the importance and possibilities. So that definitely excites me.
Right.
And before we wrap up, I've taken several lessons from this conversation, but if you had to leave our listeners with just one, what would you say?
Just do it. I have to say one of the best thing that I learned through the time is that we can think about lots of things, do a risk register all the time. Risk register is so important, but if it's understood and it's calculated, take it and just do it, because then that's one of the best way to learn.
Brilliant. Well, yeah, big thank you for joining us today and for sharing your story. I think so many people will take a lot from this. Mine is, if you can't change it, enjoy it, or I think something along those lines. I think that's a great little lesson to take. And for our listeners, if you've enjoyed the conversation and it's made you reflect on your own turning point and would like to come and have a conversation with Duncan and I, we'd love to have you on. So please reach out and don't forget to like and share and subscribe to the channel. And we look forward to coming back next week with another episode.
Thank you, Lucy.
Amazing. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. Thank you.